The exam had been long and difficult. Yuna Kim walked out of the testing hall with tired eyes and a headache that would not go away. She was 22 years old, a xenobiology student at the Galactic Union Academy on Station Horizon 7. The station was massive, home to over 40 different alien species, and Yuna had lived here for 3 years now. She still missed Earth sometimes. She missed the smell of rain and the sound of birds and her grandmother's cooking. But she had chosen this path, and she would see it through. Instead of going back to her dormitory, Yuna decided to walk. She needed to clear her head. Her feet carried her down, level by level, until she reached the lower market district. This was where the station kept its secrets. The upper levels were clean and bright, full of respectable shops and friendly faces. The lower levels were different. Here, the lights flickered. The air smelled strange. The merchants sold things that existed in the gray spaces between legal and illegal. Yuna had been here before. She liked to look at the strange creatures that traders brought from distant worlds. Most of them she could only dream of studying. Today, she walked past tanks of glowing fish from ocean planets, cages of singing insects, and terrariums full of plants that moved on their own. Then she saw the caged dot. It was small and dirty, shoved into a corner like something forgotten. Inside, a creature lay curled into a tight ball. It was about the size of a house cat, covered in fur as black as space itself, with thin streaks of silver running through it. The creature had 6 legs tucked beneath its trembling body. When Yuna stepped closer, it lifted its head. Its eyes were amber, bright like small suns, and they looked directly into hers. Yuna felt something shift inside her chest. The creature was not just looking at her. It was seeing her. There was intelligence in those eyes, and pain, and something that looked very much like hope. Ah, human girl. The voice came from behind the counter. A merchant stepped forward. He was a Velith, a species with 4 arms and gray skin that looked like stone. His smile showed too many teeth. "You do not want that one," the merchant said. "That is a Threskin cub. Very dangerous species. Apex predators. They grow big. They hunt in packs. They have destroyed entire colonies." He waved one of his 4 hands in a dismissive gesture. "This one is a runt, probably abandoned by its mother. I am selling cheap before it dies anyway." Yuna looked back at the cage. The cub had pressed itself against the bars, as close to her as it could get. It made a small sound, somewhere between a whimper and a purr. "How much?" Yuna asked. 300 credits. "But I warn you, human, these creatures cannot be tamed. It will grow up and it will kill you. It is in their nature. They are monsters." Yuna reached for her credit chip. She transferred the money before the merchant could say another word. The merchant shrugged with all 4 shoulders. "Your funeral, human." Yuna opened the cage. The cub did not run. It did not bite. It simply looked up at her with those golden eyes and waited. Slowly, carefully, Yuna reached in and lifted the small creature. It weighed almost nothing. She could feel its ribs beneath the soft fur. When had it last eaten? The cub made that purring sound again and pressed its face against her neck. Its small body was warm against her chest. "I am going to call you Baram," Yuna whispered. It was a Korean word her grandmother had taught her. It meant wind. Baram fit perfectly in the pocket of her jacket. He stayed there the entire walk home, purring against her heartbeat. When Yuna reached her dormitory, her roommate was studying at her desk. Poet was a Falari, a species that communicated through color changes in their skin. Her real name was a pattern of shifting blues and greens that human tongues could not pronounce. So Yuna had named her Poet. The Falari was small and delicate, with large dark eyes and skin that rippled with gentle colors when she was calm. Those colors turned sharp red and orange when she saw what Una was carrying. Una. Poet's voice was high and thin. Una, what is that? His name is Barm. That is a Threskin. Poet backed away until she hit the wall. They grow to 2 meters tall. They hunt in packs. They have killed entire colonial settlements. Una, you cannot keep that thing here. He is not a thing. He is a baby. Una sat on her bed and placed Barm on her lap. The cub yawned, showing tiny teeth like white needles, and then curled up against her stomach. Look at him, Poet. He is harmless. He is harmless now. What about when he is fully grown? Then he will be my harmless big baby. Poet's skin flickered through a dozen colors that Una could not read. Finally, the Falari sighed. Humans are insane. Everyone in the galaxy says so. Now I believe them. Over the next week, Una learned what it meant to care for a Threskin cub. Barham ate meat, lots of it, and he ate often. She spent most of her food budget on protein packs from the market. She researched his species on the Galactic Network and found mostly horror stories. Thresskins were classified as Class 7 predators, the most dangerous category. They were pack hunters with intelligence that rivaled some sentient species. They had claws that could cut through metal and teeth that could crush bone. Full-grown adults stood over 2 meters tall and could run faster than most vehicles. But Barham was not a full-grown adult. He was a cub who liked to sleep in her pocket, who purred when she scratched behind his ears, who followed her everywhere like a small black shadow. He followed her to class. He sat quietly under her desk while she took notes. He followed her to the cafeteria and ate scraps from her plate. He followed her to the library and slept on her lap while she studied. Professors complained. Other students stared. Security officers visited her dormitory 3 times in the first week alone. But no law on Station Horizon 7 actually prohibited owning a Threskin cub. There were warnings, recommendations, and strongly worded advisories. But no laws. So Una kept her cub. Barham grew quickly. By the end of the first month, he was too big for her pocket. By the end of the second month, he was the size of a medium dog. His silver markings became more visible, spreading across his black fur like rivers of starlight. His eyes stayed the same, golden and intelligent and always watching. Una with something that looked very much like love. The other students started calling her the crazy human with the death pet. Una did not care. For the first time since leaving Earth 3 years ago, she did not feel alone. She had Barham. She had a family again. She had no idea that her family was about to get much, much bigger. 3 months had passed since Una bought Barham from the marketplace. The small cub that once fit in her jacket pocket had grown into something much larger. He was now the size of a big dog, his black fur thick and healthy, his silver markings spreading across his body like cracks of lightning frozen in time. His eyes had not changed. They were still golden, still intelligent, still fixed on Una with absolute devotion. Barham had learned many things in 3 months. He knew to stay quiet during lectures. He knew to sit under the cafeteria table and wait for Una to finish eating. He knew that Poet, despite her fear, would sometimes sneak him treats when Una was not looking. He knew the sound of Una's footsteps and could hear her coming from 3 corridors away. Most importantly, he knew that Una was his. She had saved him from that cage. She had fed him when he was starving. She had kept him warm when he was cold. In his mind, in whatever way Thresskins understood such things, Una was his mother. It was a Tuesday when everything changed. Una had spent the afternoon in the comparative anatomy laboratory, dissecting a specimen from a water world. The work was interesting but tiring. Her back hurt and her eyes stung from staring through microscopes for hours. She was thinking about dinner, and about Barham, and about the paper she needed to write by the end of the week. She was not thinking about finding her dormitory surrounded by armed security officers. 6 of them stood in a half-circle around the building entrance, all pointing weapons at her window on the 4th floor. Students and other residents had gathered at a safe distance, whispering and pointing. The air felt electric with fear. Yuna pushed through the crowd. "What is happening?" A hand grabbed her arm. She turned and saw Officer Taiho Park, one of the few human security personnel on the station. He was a few years older than her, with tired eyes and a permanent frown. They had met before, during one of the many visits security had made to check on her dangerous pet. "Kim," Officer Park said. His voice was tight. "There is something in your room. Something big." It came through the ventilation system. Yuna's stomach dropped. "Baram?" "No, something else." "Another one." They escorted her inside at gunpoint. Yuna's heart beat so hard she could feel it in her throat. The elevator ride to the 4th floor took forever. The walk down the hallway took longer. When they finally reached her door, 2 officers took positions on either side with weapons raised. "Open it slowly," Officer Park ordered. Yuna pressed her hand to the scanner. The door slid open. Baram sat in the center of the room. He was calm, his tail wrapped around his front legs, his golden eyes watching the door. He did not seem frightened or aggressive. He seemed welcoming because he was not alone. Another Threskin sat beside him. This one was smaller than Baram, but clearly older. Her fur was black like his, but the markings were copper instead of silver, marking her as female. She was thin, terribly thin, with ribs visible beneath matted and dirty fur. One of her 6 legs hung at a wrong angle, clearly broken and badly healed. When Yuna entered the room, the female Threskin made a sound. It was low and deep, a rumbling that Yuna felt more than heard. It vibrated through the floor and up through her feet. Baram responded with a similar sound, his voice mixing with hers in something that almost sounded like music. Then the female looked directly at Yuna. She lowered her head to the ground. She exposed the soft underside of her throat. And she spoke. The word came out broken and rough, like it had been torn from a throat not made for speech. But it was clear enough for everyone to understand. "Mother?" The room went completely silent. Did that thing just talk? Officer Park whispered. Yuna could not answer. Her legs felt weak. She sat down heavily on the floor, and the female Threskin immediately moved toward her. The security officers shouted warnings, raised weapons, prepared to fire. But Baram moved faster. He placed himself between the guns and the female, his body tense, his own growl filling the room. "Stop," Yuna said. Her voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. "Everyone stop. Lower your weapons. Kim, that thing could lower your weapons, or Baram will attack you to protect her." "I know him. I know his sounds. Lower your weapons now." Something in her voice made them listen. Slowly, reluctantly, the officers lowered their guns. The female Threskin reached Yuna. Up close, she was even more damaged than she had appeared. Scars covered her body. Burn marks. Old wounds from shock weapons. Someone had hurt this creature, hurt her badly, for a very long time. "Mother?" the female said again. "Yes," Yuna whispered. She did not know why she said it. The words simply came out. "Yes, I am here." The female Threskin pressed her face against Yuna's chest and began to purr. Later, after the security officers had left and Poet had returned from wherever she had been hiding, Yuna tried to understand what had happened. She contacted xenolinguists and Threskin experts across the galactic network. The answers she received painted a picture. Thresskins could learn to speak. Not fluently, not like humans or other species with complex vocal systems, but they could learn basic words. This was not widely known because Threskins rarely lived long enough in captivity to learn, and no one in the wild would try to teach them. More importantly, Threskins had pack bonds. Strong ones. When a cub bonded with a caretaker, that bond extended to the entire pack. If one Threskin recognized someone as family, others would recognize it too. The female, whom Yuna named Nuri, meaning world, had been captured by the same trader who had sold Baram. She had been sold to a different buyer, someone who wanted a Threskin as a fighting animal. When she refused to fight, they had starved her, beaten her, shocked her. She had escaped by killing 2 of her handlers and fleeing into the station's ventilation system. For 2 months, she had survived in the darkness. She ate pests and drank condensation from pipes. She avoided patrols and security drones. She was dying, slowly but certainly. Then she caught a scent. Another Threskin. A male, young and healthy. And mixed with his scent was something else, something she did not recognize at first. A strange creature, warm-blooded, mammalian. The male's scent was covered in this other scent, and the male smelled content, happy, safe. Nuri had followed that scent for 3 days. Through maintenance tunnels and air ducts, across sectors and levels, until she finally found the source. She found Barm, and she found Yuna. In the Threskin way of understanding the world, if Baram had chosen this strange creature as his mother, then this strange creature was Pack. Pack meant safety. Pack meant food. Pack meant belonging. Pack meant family. Nuri had found her family. That night, Yuna sat on her bed with Baram on one side and Nuri on the other. The female Threskin was already looking better. A hot meal and clean water had done wonders. Her broken leg would need medical attention, but that could wait until morning. 2 Threskin's, Poet said from across the room. Her skin was pale blue, the Falari color for exhausted disbelief. You now have 2 Threskin's, the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy. And they both call you Mothe. Yuna looked at Nuri, who was already falling asleep against her shoulder. Then she looked at Barm, who watched over both of them with protective golden eyes. I think this is just the beginning, Yuna said quietly. She had no idea how right she was. Inu spread across Station Horizon 7 like fire through dry grass. A human student was keeping Threskin's in her dormitory. Not 1, but 2 of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. And they called her Mother. Some people thought it was a joke. Some thought it was a lie. Some thought Yuna Kim was the most insane human they had ever heard of, which was saying something because humans were already famous for being strange. But the Threskin's knew the truth, and they were listening. Haniel arrived 3 weeks after Nuri. Yuna found him wandering the cargo bays on level 12. He was young, barely past infancy, his black fur still soft like a puppy. His silver markings were pale and thin, and his eyes were clouded over with infection, leaving him half-blind and completely lost. The cargo workers had been planning to call pest control. A lost Threskin cub was not a cute problem. It was a dangerous one. But Yuna got there first. Come here, she said softly, kneeling on the cold metal floor. I will not hurt you. The cub could barely see her, but he could smell her. He could smell Baram and Nuri on her clothes, in her hair, on her skin. He stumbled toward her on unsteady legs, whimpering with each step. Yuna picked him up and carried him home. The veterinary treatment cost 300 credits. The eye drops cost 50 more. For 2 weeks, Yuna hand-fed him nutrient paste because his stomach was too damaged to handle solid food. She woke up every 4 hours through the night to give him medicine and clean his eyes. Poet helped. The Falari had gone from terrified to reluctantly accepting to genuinely caring. She would sit with Haniel while Yuna was in class, making sure he did not scratch at his healing eyes. By the end of the 2nd week, Haniel could see again. His eyes would never be perfect, but they were good enough. The first thing he saw clearly was Yuna's face. "Mother," he said. It was the first word he learned. SOR. It came next. She was a juvenile female, found by station security during a raid on an illegal fighting ring. Her back was covered in burns, ugly red marks where a shock collar had been welded to her fur. The collar had been removed, but the scars remained. The security officers were going to send her to a containment facility on a distant moon. Threskins from fighting rings were considered too damaged, too violent, too broken to be saved. They would be studied for a while, then killed. Yuna filed 16 legal documents in 3 days. She argued that Sora deserved a chance. She argued that she had proven Threskins could be rehabilitated. She argued until her voice was hoarse and her eyes were red from lack of sleep. The judge ruled in her favor. SOR arrived at the dormitory in a cage, sedated and muzzled. When she woke up, she was lying on a soft bed with Yuna sitting beside her. No cage, no muzzle, no shock collar. "You are safe now," Yuna told her. "No one will hurt you here." Sora did not believe her at first. Why would she? Every other creature she had known had brought pain. But days passed, then weeks, and no pain came. Instead, there was food and water and soft words and gentle hands. There was Baram, who showed her how to play without fighting. There was Nuri, who groomed her fur and slept beside her. There was Haniel, who was too young to understand fear and treated everyone like a friend. The first time Sora called Yuna mother, she cried. Threskins did not cry like humans, but the sounds she made were close enough. Yuna held her and let her cry for as long as she needed. Duri was different. He was not lost or abandoned. He was a killer. Duri had been owned by a wealthy collector who kept dangerous animals as trophies. When the collector grew bored of him, he had tried to sell Duri to a hunting preserve where rich tourists could pay to hunt Threskins for sport. Duri had killed his owner instead. He was scheduled for immediate termination. The case was not even going to trial. A Threskin that killed its owner was too dangerous to live. That was the law. Yuna filed 17 legal petitions. She argued that Duri had acted in self-defense. She argued that the collector had been preparing to send him to his death. She found records showing that the collector had abused his animals for years. She found witnesses who testified about the terrible conditions. The case went to court. It lasted 4 months. Yuna attended every session. Even when her grades suffered, even when her professors warned her she might fail the semester. In the end, the judge ruled that Duri had acted in self-defense. He would not be terminated. Instead, he would be released into the custody of someone who could control him. Yuna was the only one who volunteered. Duri was massive, the largest Threskin any of them had ever seen. He stood nearly 2 meters tall, even though he was still technically an adolescent. His fur was pure black with no silver markings at all, which was rare and considered dangerous among his kind. His eyes were not gold like the others. They were red, the color of blood, the color of fire. When he first entered the dormitory, everyone froze. Baram and Nuri moved to stand between him and Yuna. Haniel hid behind the bed. Sora pressed herself against the wall. Duri looked at them all. Then he looked at Yuna. "You saved me," he said. His voice was deeper than the others, rough like rocks grinding together. "Why?" "Because you deserve to live," Yuna answered. Duri was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, carefully, he lowered himself to the ground. He rolled onto his back, exposing his belly and throat. The ultimate sign of submission among Threskins. "Mother," he said. BYEOL was the smallest. Yuna found her in a shipping crate that had been left in a trash disposal area. The crate was marked for destruction. Inside, wrapped in dirty cloth, was a newborn Threskin cub. Her eyes had not even opened yet. She was so small she fit in Yuna's palm. Someone had thrown her away. Like garbage. Yuna fed bile from a bottle every 3 hours for a month. She slept in 2-hour shifts. She carried the tiny cub everywhere in a special pouch she had made from an old shirt. The other Threskins took turns watching over their newest sister, keeping her warm, protecting her while Yuna attended class. When Bile finally opened her eyes for the first time, she saw Yuna's face. She saw her brothers and sisters gathered around. She saw her family. Ma, Bile said. It was not quite mother, but it was close enough. Miru was the last. She did not come through the ventilation system, or the cargo bays, or the courts. She simply walked through the front door of the dormitory one day and lay down at Yuna's feet. Miru was old, much older than the others. Her fur was gray at the edges, and her body was covered in scars from a lifetime of pain. She had been a breeder once, forced to produce cubs that were taken from her and sold. She had escaped years ago and had been living in the shadows of the station ever since. She did not speak when she arrived. She simply looked at Yuna with tired eyes and waited. "You can stay," Yuna said. Miru stayed. 7 Threskins now lived in a space meant for one human student. The dormitory had been expanded 3 times, walls knocked down and rooms combined to create enough space. Yuna's life was a constant cycle of feeding, grooming, playing, teaching, and loving, but she would not have it any other way. One night, Yuna sat surrounded by her family. Baram lay against her right side. Nori lay against her left. Haniel slept across her legs. Sora and Duri curled together nearby. Bile had claimed her usual spot in Yuna's lap. Miru watched over them all from her corner, old eyes soft with something like peace. 7 Threskins, Poet said from across the room. Her skin was a calm green, the color of acceptance. 7 apex predators, all calling one small human their mother. Yuna smiled and stroked Bile's fur. "I think the universe is trying to tell me something." "What?" "That family is not about blood. It is about love. It is about choosing each other. It is about being there when no one else will." The Threskins purred in agreement. The sound filled the room like a song, deep and warm and safe. Yuna had not planned to become a mother, but she was one now, 7 times over. And she would protect her children with everything she had. She just did not know how soon that protection would be tested. The message arrived on a cold morning, 6 months after Yuna had bought her first cub from the marketplace. It came on official letterhead, stamped with the seal of the Galactic Council, and it made her blood run cold. Station Director Hannah Cho had filed a complaint. 7 Class 7 predators were living on Station Horizon 7, she argued, housed in what was essentially a student dormitory. This was a danger to every resident. This was a violation of common sense. This needed to be addressed immediately. The Galactic Council agreed. A hearing would be held in 3 weeks. Representatives from 47 species would gather to decide the fate of Yuna, Kim, and her pack. If the council ruled against her, her children would be taken away. They would be sent to containment facilities across the galaxy. They would be studied, experimented on, and eventually killed. Yuna would not let that happen. She spent the next 3 weeks preparing. She gathered evidence. She contacted experts. She documented every moment of her life with the Threskins, showing how gentle they were, how intelligent, how capable of love. She recorded videos of Baram playing with toys like a puppy. She recorded Nuri grooming Bile with motherly care. She recorded Haniel learning to read simple words. She recorded Sora bringing Yuna gifts, little treasures she found around the station. She recorded Duri, the supposed killer, rolling onto his back for belly rubs. She recorded Miru singing soft songs to the younger ones at night. She built her case, one piece at a time. On the day of the hearing, Una wore her best clothes. She was not much to look at, she knew. A small human woman, barely 160 centimeters tall, with dark hair and tired eyes. Against the representatives of 47 species, she looked like nothing at all. But she was not nothing. She was a mother, and mothers fought for their children. The council chamber was enormous, a vast dome filled with floating platforms where each species had their place. Una stood in the center, alone, surrounded by thousands of alien eyes. Some looked at her with curiosity. Some looked with disgust. Most looked at her like she was already dead. The prosecution spoke first. They showed footage of Threskin attacks on colonies. Brutal, efficient, horrifying, bodies torn apart, buildings reduced to rubble, entire settlements wiped out in hours. They showed statistics. Over 10,000 deaths in the past century, all caused by Threscans. They showed expert testimony from xenobiologists, who had never actually met a Threskin up close, but were very confident that the creatures were nothing but killing machines. This human woman, the prosecutor said, pointing at Una, is housing 7 of these monsters in a residential area. She's risking the lives of every person on Station Horizon 7. She must be stopped. The creatures must be removed. This is not cruelty. This is common sense. The chamber murmured in agreement. Then it was Una's turn. She had prepared a speech. She had memorized statistics and arguments and counterpoints. But standing there, surrounded by beings who had already made up their minds, she realized that words alone would not be enough. I could tell you about the research, Una said. Her voice was small in the vast chamber, but the microphones carried it to every platform. I could tell you that Threscans have intelligence levels comparable to human children. I could tell you that they form deep emotional bonds. I could tell you that every attack you showed was caused by Threscans who had been captured, tortured, and driven mad with pain. I could tell you that healthy Threscans in their natural environment are no more aggressive than any other apex predator. She paused. But you would not believe me. You have already decided what Threscans are. You have decided they are monsters. You have decided they cannot be saved. You have decided they deserve to die. She took a breath. So I will not tell you. I will show you. Una turned to the chamber doors. Bring them in. The doors opened. Security officers entered first, weapons drawn, faces tight with fear. Behind them came the Threscans, all 7 of them. They walked in formation, a living wall of black fur and gleaming eyes. Baron led the pack, his silver markings catching the light. Nuri walked at his side, copper markings warm against her dark fur. Haniel came next, his pale markings and clouded eyes making him look gentle, even though he was now nearly as large as the others. Sora walked with her head high, the burn scars on her back visible for all to see. Duri towered over them all, his red eyes scanning the chamber for threats. Bile trotted along at the center of the group, still the smallest, still trying to keep up with her bigger siblings. Miru brought up the rear, old and scarred and watchful. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates screamed. Some fled for the exits. Security officers raised weapons. Someone called for emergency lockdown. The air filled with panic and fear and the certain knowledge that death was about to unfold. The Threscans ignored it all. They crossed the chamber floor, flowing around obstacles like water around stones. When they reached Una, they formed a circle around her. Not threatening, not aggressive, just present. Just there. Just family.byEOL. Ever the baby climbed up Una's leg and into her arms. The young Threskin, now the size of a medium dog, tucked her face into Una's neck and began to purr. The chaos slowly died down. The delegates stopped screaming. The security officers did not fire. Everyone just stared. "This is unprecedented," the High Arbiter said. Her voice trembled slightly. "In 10,000 years of recorded galactic history, no species has ever successfully integrated with the Threskin." "Humans are unprecedented," Una replied. She stroked Bile's fur gently. "We have always been. On our home world, we took wolves, creatures that could kill us with a single bite, and we made them into dogs. We took horses, animals that could crush us beneath their hooves, and we made them into partners. We took cats, tiny predators with claws and teeth, and we made them into family." She looked around the chamber. "This is what humans do. We bond with things. We love things. We love things that should not love us back. We love things that can hurt us. We love things that the universe says are too dangerous to love. And somehow, against all logic, against all reason, those things love us back." Miru moved forward. The oldest Threskin, the most scarred, the one who had suffered the most. She lowered her massive head until her forehead touched Una's shoulder. This was the ultimate gesture of trust among Thresskins. It exposed her vulnerable throat completely. It said, without words, that she trusted Una with her life. "Mother," Miru rumbled. "Safe." The word echoed through the silent chamber. Una felt tears on her cheeks, but did not wipe them away. The Threskin are not monsters. They are intelligent beings who feel pain and love and loss just like we do. They have been hunted and sold and tortured for thousands of years because everyone was too afraid to see them as anything other than predators. But predators can love too. They just need someone willing to love them first." The High Arbiter stared at Una for a long moment. Then she looked at the 7 Thresskins surrounding this small human woman. She saw how they positioned themselves to protect her. She saw how they watched her every movement. She saw how the smallest one clung to her like a child clings to its mother. "We will take a vote," the High Arbiter said finally. The voting lasted 17 minutes. Una stood in the center of the chamber the entire time, surrounded by her children, waiting to learn if her family would live or die. The results appeared on the main screen. 31 votes in favor, 16 votes against. Una Kim was granted legal guardianship of all 7 Thresk and S. It was the first time in galactic history that a human had been legally recognized as the parent of an alien species. The chamber erupted again, but this time with different sounds. Surprise, wonder, maybe even a little hope. Una hugged Bile tighter and let the tears fall freely. "We did it," she whispered. "We are staying together." Baram pressed against her side and purred. They had won this battle. But Una knew this was only the beginning. She had proven that Thresskins could be saved. Now she had to prove it again and again, until the whole galaxy believed it. She was ready. 5 years had passed since a tired student bought a dying cub from a dirty cage in a marketplace. 5 years since the universe changed forever. Dr. Una Kim stood at the entrance of the Threskin Rehabilitation Center, watching the sun rise over the horizon. The facility sprawled across a valley on a remote moon in human-controlled space. There were fields where Thresskins could run and hunt. There were forests where they could climb and explore. There were buildings filled with medical equipment and comfortable rooms and everything else they might need. Una had designed it all. She had raised the money through donations from across the galaxy. She had fought politicians and bureaucrats and skeptics who said it would never work. She had built this place from nothing, brick by brick, dream by dream. And now it was real. Behind her stood her original 7, fully grown now and magnificent in ways that still took her breath away. Baram towered at 2.5 meters tall, his silver markings brilliant against fur as black as space. He was her first, her constant shadow, her protector. Even now, after all these years, he still tried to fit his massive head into her lap when she sat down. Nuri stood beside him, copper markings warm in the morning light. She had become the pack's second mother, helping Una care for every new arrival, teaching them the ways of the Threskin people that had almost been lost. Haniel had grown strong despite his damaged eyes. He could see well enough to run and hunt, and what he lacked in perfect vision, he made up for with hearing so sharp he could detect a heartbeat from across a room. Sora still bore the scars on her back, but she carried them proudly now. They were not marks of shame. They were proof that she had survived. She had become one of the center's best teachers, showing new arrivals that pain did not have to define them. Dory was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall, the largest Threskin anyone had ever recorded. His red eyes still frightened visitors, but those who knew him understood that beneath that terrifying exterior was a gentle soul who loved nothing more than playing with the smallest cubs. Bile had finally stopped trying to fit in Una's pocket, though she still tried to climb into her lap at every opportunity. She had grown into a beautiful adult with markings that shifted between silver and gold, depending on the light. Miru, the oldest, had slowed down in recent years. Her gray fur had spread, and she slept more than she used to. But her eyes were still sharp, and she still watched over the family with the wisdom of someone who had seen everything and survived it all. These 7 stood with Una as they prepared to welcome the newest arrivals. 37 Thresskins waited in the intake area. Cubs and juveniles, all of them, rescued from illegal trades, abusive owners, and abandoned colonies across the galaxy. Some had been found half dead in shipping containers. Some had been pulled from fighting rings. Some had simply been thrown away by people who no longer wanted them. They watched Una with wary eyes. They had learned not to trust. They had learned that other creatures brought only pain. Every instinct told them to run, to hide, to fight. But something else told them to wait. Something in the scent of the humans around them. Something in the way the adult Threskin stood calm and content. Something that whispered of possibilities they had never dared to imagine. Una walked toward them. Her 7 followed at a respectful distance, giving the newcomers space. "You have heard stories about me," Una said. Her voice was gentle, but carried clearly across the compound. "Some of those stories are true. Some are not. Here is what matters." She paused, looking at each of the 37 faces before her. "You are safe now. No one will hurt you here. No one will sell you, or cage you, or shock you, or starve you. This is your home now, for as long as you want it." A small cub in the front row whimpered. She was barely past infancy, thin and shaking, with fur so matted it was impossible to tell what color her markings were. Una knelt down to the cub's level. "I know you are scared, little one. I know the world has been cruel to you. But cruelty is not all there is. There is also kindness. There is also love. There is also family." The cub's whimpering slowed. "I cannot replace the mothers you lost," Una continued, speaking to all of them now. "I will not try, but I can offer you something else. A pack, a place to belong, a chance to be more than what the galaxy expects you to be." Baran stepped forward and made a sound. It was the Threskin call for pack assembly, a deep rumbling that resonated in the chest rather than the ears. One by one, the adult Thresskins joined him, adding their voices to his. Nuri and Sora, Haniel and Duri, Bile and old Miru. 7 voices rising together in a chorus that spoke of belonging. The 37 new arrivals listened. Something changed in their eyes. The fear was still there, but now there was something else too. Hope, curiosity, the first small seeds of trust. "You do not have to decide today," Una said. "You do not have to believe me today. All I ask is that you give this place a chance. Give us a chance. We will not hurt you. We will not give up on you. We will be here, waiting, for as long as it takes. She stood up and opened her arms. For a long moment, nothing happened. The 37 Threskins stayed where they were, frozen between fear and longing. Then the small cub in the front row moved. She took one trembling step forward. Then another. Then another. She crossed the space between them in unsteady steps that got stronger with each stride. When she reached Una, she climbed up the human's leg and pressed her face into the soft fabric of Una's shirt. "Mother?" the cub whispered. Una held her close, feeling the tiny heartbeat against her chest. "Yes, little one. I am here. I will always be here." Behind her, Barum began to purr. The sound spread through the 7, then through the 37, until the entire compound vibrated with the deep, warm sound of contentment. More cubs began to move forward. Then juveniles. Then even the oldest and most damaged of the newcomers. They gathered around Una and the original 7, forming a circle of black fur and gleaming eyes and healing hearts. Una felt tears on her cheeks. She did not try to stop them. This was what she had built. This was what she had fought for. Not just a facility. Not just a program. A family. A family that grew with every lost soul who found their way here. In the years that followed, Dr. Una Kim would rehabilitate over 500 Threskins. She would change laws across the galaxy. She would write books and give speeches and train others to continue her work. She would be called a hero, a pioneer, a miracle worker. But she never thought of herself that way. She was simply what she had always been since that day in the marketplace, when a tired student looked into amber eyes and saw something worth saving. A mother. On the day Una turned 50, her children threw her a party. All of them. The original 7 now gray around the edges themselves. The hundreds who had passed through the center over the years, many of whom had returned just for this occasion. Cubs and juveniles and full-grown adults, all gathered in the great field behind the main building. Varam, her oldest, pressed his massive head against her shoulder. He was slower now, his silver markings faded with age. But his eyes were still golden, still intelligent, still looking at her with absolute love. "Mother," he rumbled. Happy. Una hugged him as best she could, her arms barely reaching around his neck. "I am happy too, my love. I am so happy." She looked out at the gathered Threskins. Hundreds of them. Predators. Monsters. Killers. Her children. "You know," she said quietly, "when I bought you from that cage, I never imagined this. I just saw a small creature who needed help. I just wanted to make one life a little better." Barum purred against her. "Made many lives better. Made everything better. We made it better together. All of us." The sun was setting over the valley, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The Threskins began to sing, their rumbling voices joining in a harmony that humans could not replicate, but could always recognize as beautiful. Una closed her eyes and listened. She had changed the galaxy. She had proven that love was stronger than fear. She had shown that the most dangerous predators in the universe could become family if someone was willing to try. But none of it would have happened without a single moment in a dirty marketplace, when a tired student looked at a dying cub and made a choice. She chose love. And love had chosen her back. In the great records of human achievement, alongside their art and science and impossible stubbornness, one entry would stand above the rest for ages to come. It read simply, "They made family of everything they touched, even the monsters." Especially the monsters. Dr. Una Kim had proven that entry true. She had become the mother of predators. And her children had become proof that love could change the universe